right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Scary Stories We Tell. I am one of your hosts, Chris Dashu. I am joined by my good friend and yours, back more consistently now. I like it. It's good. It feels good.
Me too.
A sabbatical is exactly what it is, and you're back.
And now I'm back talking about weird shit.
Yeah, your friend and mine, Jess Byard.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Let's get serious.
Hello, everybody. I am here to talk about serial killers, so it's very serious now.
As you can tell by the title of this episode in your feed, this is not something we talk about on this show very often, actually, at all. And that stems from about a year ago.
We brought it up. We brought it up in like previous episodes. Like we did killer couples. We did that. They were, serial killers, definitely in that one. But yeah, it's typically not a focus of ours.
No. And Emma brings even less of a vibe of true crime to the show. That's probably more of your angle and my angle than it is Emma's. But Emma and I talked about it as well when we've done our shows.
To James Renner.
Yeah, and we talked to James Renner, and it Twisted and Uncorked, when they come on, they bring that energy too, because they talk about that, and then some of our other guests, and then I would say like none of our like guests other than James Renner, like Rob, not really, Josh Bragg, not really. Rob's more into like the ghosts and stuff and the paranormal and the parapolitical, which are always fun episodes. I don't know if you've listened to those episodes of the show.
No, I don't think I've had that.
Yeah, there's
that one yet.
We get some pretty interesting conspiracy theory stuff. Okay. Yeah, not in that.
I guess I just never heard it like referred to as parapolitical, but I like that.
Yeah, but yeah, that's kind of, it's not like the crazy right wing stuff, because Rob is Rob hates that shit even more than I do. But yeah, those episodes are interesting, but we tend to not talk about serial killers for a number of reasons, mainly because it always feels weird. And it's weird for a number of reasons, because there's true crime, but like serial killers are a like very hard direction of true crime. It's like we do a movie podcast and you're on it from time to time. And, we talk about genres and subgenres. Serial killers are like a subgenre of true crime, right? If we were to put that template on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a problem in and of itself that we're referring to it that way. But, again, just to kind of break it down into something that makes sense. But serial killer, it's like a serial killer culture that we're living in now. Like, I don't know how to describe it.
To your point, there's no way to talk about serial killers and the crimes that they've committed without making them the focus of the story, because their story is too, grotesque and scandalous and, horrifying and terrifying and all of these, extremes that people are drawn to. People, if it bleeds, it leads, right? Yeah. So there's really no way to talk about it without, putting them at the focus. I mean, there is, like, we can get definitely into this, later on when we talk about the more ethical aspects of serial killers and things. But I think, just to shorten the point for now, I think it's hard to not put them at the forefront, and the reality of what they've done and the gravity of what they've done is just a true downer and a bummer. And it sort of feels like you're perpetuating something really horrific for no real point, because what is there new to say on a lot of these things? What are we all talking about, really? What is the point? Like, I'm all for like my favorite kinds of true crimes are like, yes, like, and by favorite, I'm going to not say favorite. I'm going to say things that I'm most interested in.
I like that, Jess. I'm not going to say favorite.
Right. But I mean, like, I think.
I know. No,
yeah,
but look, I don't think anybody is going to mistake either you or I for a true crime fanatic, because we're not. Go listen to that Killer Couple episode. I think by the end of it, this is the first time we've talked about true crime since, because of how gnarly that episode was.
I'll say that there was a time, like, when I, was like starting to get into horror movies and all of that things. I went through like the major like serial killer phase and all of that, like looking, like wanting to read all about them and all the different ones and learn about all the horrific things that they did. And I just don't, I'm just not anymore. I mean, I know a lot of the information now, sure. So there's less reason for me to go looking for it. Cause like I said, what is there new to be said on a lot of these people? It's pretty much they were these people and this is what they did. My favorite kind of the type of true crime that I am most interested in and drawn to are, yes, random moments of violence. Like I do find that very interesting, and like the parts I find interesting is to like why these people did it, like what were those motives, like what is the story behind some of it, and those are the things I'm interested in. Also like the complete like unknown, unsolved true crime stuff. I love, unsolved mysteries, right? Like disappearances, things like that. Those things are what are interesting to me, are interesting. A lot of it is because of the unknown. A lot of it is because it is kind of, all about, like, at least when you're reading and watching and learning about those crimes, you're learning about the victim more than the person who did it, because nobody knows who did it. So I think that it's putting, the real emotion and the real like understanding as to why it is important to keep these kind of stories going, because these crimes can go unsolved and these people are real people who are gone now and they deserve some kind of closure. But by omitting the person who did it, you are able to connect with it more rather than it being glorified and exploitative of what happened and who the monster was and why they did the things they did, which is never really deeply analytical when it comes to like pop culture and, references within things, right? It's always very black and white. This person was abused. This person was, treated poorly by X, Y, and Z. And then this is why they did the things. There's no real deep, like analytical talk or psyche evaluation going on. It's just highlighting the extremes.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to, in my mind, the reason I wanted to do this episode to begin with. It's just the Dahmer show that came out, I think, is a very weird scenario for me, maybe a little bit for you as well. But for me, it's pretty weird because that Jeffrey Dahmer was kind of the serial killer that always was interested me the most. I don't know why. I mean, it probably comes down to the the gay angle. Probably that was probably it. But I didn't think that we would ever need to see a TV show about it. Like a fictionalized retelling of some of the worst, most heinous crimes perpetrated against human beings, I think in this country's history. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
I just, as someone who has always been immensely kind of taken by that whole case, I never it's like seeing movies about it always felt salacious. Like to think that they were anything other than exploitation movies was kind of missing the point. But now a show is presenting this case seriously. And it's like, I guess I failed to see why. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, we have seen variations of Dahmer in film and television, right? Like
Jeremy
one of
Renner.
the more notable Jeremy Renner is in one of the more well-known but still very, very ultra low budget movies about Dahmer. And it's been a long time since I've watched that one, but if I recall, that one does take place after high school.
It's like him living on his own.
Yeah, in Milwaukee. And that one, I feel like that one is very gritty and like just grimy movie to watch. But most of the other retellings but most of the other variations of like Dahmer stuff that we've gotten is like him in his youth. So like all of the events leading up to the murder of Stephen Hicks and, how he was in high school and how people treated him in high school. And we do get that. I mean, there is a lot of that in Dahmer. in the Netflix version. Sure, but this is very much more so surrounding the adult version of Dahmer, the actual like full-fledged serial killer monster Dahmer. And I think that some of the draw to Jeffrey Dahmer is that there is some empathy that you can potentially have for him in how he was treated by his family and how he was treated by people in school, which is basically through all of the incarnations of Dahmer in media, they've all been consistent in how his childhood was and how his high school years were and how his, family life was. And that is down to, the My Friend Dahmer, which was written by someone who went to high school with him. So there is that. That is stuff that happened. That is stuff that is extremely sad and unfortunate that he was treated that way and that he was neglected in pretty much every way possible by his family. And that definitely plays big part into where the empathy can come into play. But the bottom line is Jeffrey Dahmer was a monster at the end of the day and committed some really, like you said, some of the most heinous crimes in American history.
Like, I don't even want to talk about what they are because it's like, what's the point? But
no, I don't think we need to. I think people
think about putting myself
this podcast know what he did.
To think about putting myself in that position to do those things is like,
nope.
Right? That's the thing that I have a hard time with. One is, yeah, we could sit and talk about, whatever, this, that, and something else, empathy for him, sympathy for him, his position in the world, yada, yada, yada. But like you said, at the end of the day, it really kind of doesn't matter because he kind of puts an exclamation point on himself. He says, like, none of those other things are really going to matter because I decided.
I'm not just going to murder people. I'm going to do a lot more things than that. And
right, because we don't really talk about the people that just murder people. Those are just spree killers. That's like Parkland, that's like Columbine, which they have their own thing.
Son of Sam,
right? But they're just shooting people or killing people. Right. This is like again, less
personal.
I was talking with friend of the show, or not even friend of the show. I was talking with Emma, one of the hosts of the show, about this show, this Dahmer show. And I said, the other thing about the show that I really don't like is I've never wanted to be in that apartment, like it seems like the actual fucking portal to hell, as our friend Mr. Zach Bagans.
Yeah, it really, really does.
Right. Like to hear, because I've read some books on Audible. We're not sponsored by them, but you should go check out Audible.
And Audible should sponsor us.
Yeah, Audible should sponsor us. But you're right. But Audible has a book written by a woman who was a journalist in Milwaukee who walked around his apartment because she got a tip from a police friend in the bureau, and not the bureau, but in the police department, about a guy having heads in a refrigerator. And so she went. And she was like there within an hour of him getting arrested. And she talks about like walking around inside of his apartment and like
contaminating a crime scene.
Well, I think
no part of me would want to do that. And like as I can say, I see the journalistic drive, sure, but I'm a filmmaker and I like spooky, weird shit. And no part of me would want to go walk around in Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. Now, like, yes, I have visited the outside. Chris has visited the outside of Jeffrey Dahmer's childhood home.
It's true.
That is like 25 minutes from where, I reside. But yes, a murder did happen there.
Yeah.
That is fair.
And the bones were scattered behind that place. I mean, that's out in the open. I mean, that's out in the open.
So, I mean, I guess I am more inclined, like, if that house were open, I might go in it. But even though I say that, and then I might think, like, in my stomach, I'm like, you know what? No, I still don't want to go in. Like, yeah. So even for the sake of like journalism or something.
I think if somebody offered me the opportunity, maybe, but I think I'm with you. I think it would feel kind of icky.
Yeah, I feel very icky. I would need to do a cleansing after big time.
Yeah. And that's the thing about all of this that, like, I feel like can't be overstated. Like, when you talk about this stuff, I feel like you have like a layer of ick on you when you're done, right? Because like again, like Bundy and
because
Dahmer
it's real
and Gacy,
horrible shit.
That, but it's not.
It's real horrible shit that can't be undone.
It's like the I think it's like the desecration of human bodies is where the line starts. Like that for me. Where the serial killers, like where the real ones that the people are really like all bent out of shape about, like BTK, Green River Killer, Bundy, Dahmer, those dudes, like it's because they were doing weird stuff after the fact, like really awful things, and that's where people are like, why were they doing that?
Right, like you're just like really driving home a point, man.
Right, because somebody strangling someone's not nearly as exciting as what half of these other people that I just mentioned were doing. And again, not going to go into detail on any of it because at this point, how wouldn't you know? At this point, if you're listening to these kinds of shows, there's no way that you don't know. This is like true crime edging. Oh, fucking say it. Say what he did. Say what he fucking did.
We won't do it.
and that Dahmer show doesn't either. It doesn't really show much of anything.
I mean,
it shows more than it should, but it doesn't show that much. It
True,
but like because it can't show those things. It can't fucking show them. Like none of the anythings that's ever adapted his story have ever fucking shown him doing that stuff because like it's too vile. It's too
him do it.
It's too vile to recreate. It's too vile to recreate. You know, it's like it's so just awful because it actually happened. Like that's when it like it always feels like an exploitative line, right? Like this is writing a line, and this is the issue. You have to ask yourself, okay, are you okay with true crime? Yes or no? If you're okay with it, then you go on to the next step. If you're not, then you're just not going to watch it. There are plenty of people that do not have any interest, do not watch it, but they don't tell the other people who do like it that they can't watch it, which is perfectly fine. Okay, so if you're in the camp of people who like it, or at least are amenable to watching it,
are interested in it,
right? Like you are not going to all agree on what kind of true crime stuff you want to watch, and this kind of stuff is so fucking gnarly that even if you say, all right, I want to go into the darkest of the serial killer stuff, which is Dahmer and Bundy and some of the even worse people like oh god,
Albert Fish.
Oh, fine, Jesus, Jesus! I don't even have to say anything else. Just Albert, yeah, is he? I guess is that? Yeah, he's in this camp, right? It's. Oh
God, yeah.
Yeah, his is just like that letter.
Ed Gein.
Yeah.
John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah.
All people who make appearances in Dahmer for no reason other than it's the last couple episodes and we need to fill time.
Yeah, well, hey, why not, right? Get the greatest hits while we're out there. My favorite thing is all these TikTokers that are like, okay, now that we have Evan Peters as Dahmer, who else can we cast as Bundy in the Netflix Bundy show? Who can we cast as, who would be the other one? Who would be the John Wayne? No one wants that. No one fucking wants that. Nobody wants that.
No.
Dahmer, okay. Well, that's the thing. That's the thing that kind of like boggles my fucking mind here. And I know that, fucking tell me I'm wrong. Okay. As a bisexual guy, as a gay dude, I get it. Evan Peters is a good looking guy. Like, you don't have to convince me of that. I get it. And and there are plenty of straight dudes that probably think he's a good looking dude too. It's not just me. But like, don't try to tell me that you couldn't have found someone who was just like a normal looking schmo that could do a Dahmer impersonation, because like, you made a sexy guy be Dahmer. It's just hard to really reconcile that.
Well, I mean,
because Dahmer wasn't a good looking. I know that everybody keeps saying he was a good looking guy at the time, but like everything that I've read and heard about him,
serial killers, like.
But
the serial killer, it's like presidents and serial killers. Okay, the bar is real low for attraction.
But that's the thing. But here's the thing, though. If you put yourself in the position of having the discussion about how did people become enamored with him to become his victims, right? Outside, if some of them were money, but some of them it wasn't just money, right?
And it's okay here.
But sometimes it wasn't money because it's supposedly
a small town.
But he's supposedly a good-looking guy too.
Yeah, but it's small town, and being gay then was really hard. And
no, I agree.
Whoever the fuck is looking at me.
But
cool.
I hear people describing Dahmer as attractive when they're talking about the man himself. And
they say that about Bundy too, and he is also just like mildly,
I know, but
he's moderately attractive.
But Jess, you're gay and I'm gay. Do we really think that gay African American and Hispanic guys were going to be into someone looking like Dahmer in those clubs unless he was flashing money at them?
Dorky, cute white guy, yeah.
I don't know, but he smelled bad and he was weird. They talk about him like he was weird.
I think a lot of it was more money and drugs than like the show, actually.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think he was more just like, I have a lot of cash because he wasn't spending it on anything else. That's my point. I think my point is, I don't think Dahmer was this good looking guy in real life. So why did you make him a sexy dude in your show? It's just kind of strange.
Well, I mean,
because he's a good actor.
Is it though? Because it's Ryan Murphy.
He's only a producer.
American
he didn't direct the show.
Just
because it's Ryan Murphy doesn't mean Evan Peters has to be in it. Sarah Paulson's not in the show.
True.
Jessica Lange in the show. I would watch. I would watch that. Look, I get it. I mean, the dudes at Red Letter Media said it best. Every couple of years, and they live in Milwaukee, so they live in the town where they have to put up with this shit every couple of years. Like Jay said it best at Red Letter Media. He's like, every couple of years, a Dahmer thing comes out, and I tell myself I'm not going to watch it, and inevitably I do.
Yep.
And like, I don't know why. I do know why.
I don't know why I do it,
but I do it. I do know why. I think ultimately, in the end, like, it's just. In a lot of ways,
I want to see.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's just. I think.
Look, why do people go to freak shows?
Well, if we were if we didn't have this part of us in our DNA, we would be robots. It's the part of human beings that I feel like is hard to explain. It's just the wanting to know the unknown. Like I ultimately watch all that stuff so that I can form a better picture in my head of what I think it is. Right. Which informs my belief system on, I don't know, the human condition, because there's only one person like that. I hope to God. And in a lot of ways, like, I think the most.
One sec.
Oh, sure. I was going to say, ultimately, the real way you could view all of these stories, at least the more sympathetic ones. And again, the like we've said, there's kind of a sympathetic note to his story. I don't like that angle, but I get it. I am glad that I don't have whatever affliction he fucking had, because that I believe that I don't know how I feel about Jeffrey Dahmer overall, but I know he was fucking insane. Because and in the Confessions of a Killer, the Dahmer thing that's on Netflix, the actual thing where they're playing tapes from between him and the lawyer.
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch that.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good only for a couple reasons. It addresses like a lot of the weird like way the case was handled and stuff, which is the stuff that I'm more interested in, especially with the people that are like directly involved. But one of the guys goes, if eating a guy in Milwaukee doesn't get you insane, what will?
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, it's like, yeah. He was insane. He was insane. Like there's
even if he didn't want to plead it, which is what the show says.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Dahmer show. Yeah.
Whatever.
It says he didn't want to plead insane. But yeah, I mean, so because we don't have to talk about Dahmer the whole time, but I do want to touch on the sort of ethical question of things like Dahmer. And when I'm talking, let's specify here that I'm talking about a fictionalized version of something that actually a horrific thing that actually happened within living memory. So we have fictionalized versions with like the Holocaust, right? We have plenty of Nazi Germany movies. We have fictionalized versions of a lot of tragic and horrible things. But generally, there's a long stretch of time between them that kind of, separates the people who were directly affected by them. It separates them from having to relive that trauma. Now, in a time that is 2022, where marketing is everything, baby, and everything you do all day long, if you're staring at a screen most of the time, which I would think most of our listeners and most of the people that we know, including ourselves, are, you're bombarded by marketing for the latest hot thing. And if you even like the Netflix page, you're going to get advertisements for every fucking thing they do. And if you just so happen to be someone who is related to a victim who was murdered by Jeffrey Dahmer, that's now going to be something that's going to be popping up in your life all the time. So we hit a point of like the ethical question of doing these kind of fictionalized, glorified, not, you know, I don't want to say glorified in that like I feel that Jeffrey Dahmer came off in a good way in this, because I don't think that he did. I think they did kind of hit the sympathetic note a little bit too hard in places.
I mean, they gave him a backstory. They mythologized him. I don't know why they did.
I mean, but his backstory, like the backstory that they do have, is very true to his actual life story.
Right, but my question is, what's the point?
Exactly. Yes, and I mean, I guess the point we can say. The point is that it is a fictionalized thing. Therefore, they had to write a story structure and give the lead character, which is Jeffrey Dahmer, an arc.
If they wanted to do it the way that they did it, which is the easiest way to do it, if you're going to do it that way, it really is. Like, I mean, that's the reality of it. It's the laziest, easiest way to tell a story like this, is to do it the way that they did it, which is to make him a pseudo sympathetic, somewhat. I mean, again, they don't show the stuff that they don't show for a reason, because it's so terrible. Because if they showed that, there's no way you would even find this guy remotely goddamn sympathetic. No. I mean, if they were showing it even in like, I mean, even in like an even
My Friend Dahmer.
I haven't.
You have not. Okay, so have you read the comic?
No, I want to.
No. Okay, so it is a telling of his high school days by the author's name is Dirk Factor, but he went to high school with Jeffrey Dahmer, and this is account of going to school with Jeffrey Dahmer. And it is very much a story of like, you know, a lot of the stuff that we see in Dahmer in the Netflix series, you know, revolving around his parents being very volatile in their marriage, ultimately getting divorced, his mom leaving him, you know, in the house by himself for his, you know, 17th and 18th, you know, years of life, essentially, and getting, you know, basically bullied until he was pretty much just a clown for people to like be entertained by. So, you know, there is a lot of that is very true to his real backstory. That is something that happened to him, and that is, you know, really unfortunate. But ultimately, yes, you're right. If they showed the things that he actually did, there's no way that, yeah, okay, he was bullied in school, but Jesus Christ.
I was bullied in school too.
I was bullied in school too. There are other fucking ways to deal with your problem. He had other things wrong, yes, and clinically insane.
Yes.
You know, lacking empathy in himself. For as much empathy as we can have for Jeffrey Dahmer, he lacked every bit of that empathy.
Yeah.
Like that's what that is.
Empathetic people don't do what he did.
Yeah, while it is sad about what happened to him and how he was treated, and yes, being gay and during a time when it was very not acceptable, and also dealing with the crisis of AIDS and dealing, you know, with, you know, just everything about it. Yeah, that's also really sad. And that's a lot of shit for one person to deal with. But
a lot of other people dealt with it a lot better. A lot better. I mean, again, there's not even a fucking question.
And everybody has their own shit, but exactly. But ultimately,
like,
this is unforgivable.
Everybody has their own shit, but come on, man.
But this is unforgivable.
Yeah,
and so the ultimate, you know, this question being like, Chris, so in the last couple of years, you know, serial killer, true crime interest has been a thing for the last 5 or more years. It is maybe a little less these days. I think it's a little less prevalent, but it is still around.
I don't know. There may have been a fire starter put on some kindling with this. I don't know.
True. Yeah, we don't know. But as of right now, it did seem to kind of hit a lull a little bit. But this is still, people still watch this. People are talking about this. Obviously, we're talking about this.
It's been out for like almost a month now, too, by the way. We're still talking about this almost a month later.
Yeah. But in the last couple of years, Netflix has also put out many other documentaries and series about serial killers. Now, documentaries I'm going to leave out of this discussion because documentaries are factual. That's a whole other perspective, generally an unbiased one. So whatever. But a fictionalized version of something is always going to have themes and story intentions and a bit more, creative thinking with how actual events actually happen. So we have seen Ted Bundy, a fictionalized version starring Zac Efron, yet another sexy man.
Does that one kind of make sense though?
No, I think that when you're talking about it in the same way, though.
It does, but it doesn't. Like, I don't know.
Well, it makes sense in what way?
I guess Ted Bundy is more just kind of average Joe, generally good-looking dude. Not saying like
but I wouldn't say Zac Efron is average.
Well,
Joe,
yeah, really. Sure. I mean, sure. I would agree. There's it's the same problem.
Like, if that movie had been made like 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, it could have been like Johnny Depp. Like, it would have been, yeah, exactly. But I'm saying sure. Hot guy, of the time,
sure,
or of a time playing this.
Zac Efron doesn't really look like him, I guess. I mean, doesn't really matter, but
that even kind of goes more to the point, though, right? Like you pick somebody who kind of maybe looks a little bit like Ted Bundy in that he looks like a guy,
yeah,
with dark hair and a square face and all of that, but he's also just really hot.
Yes.
And you're playing up a fact that people do fetishize and fantasize about people like this. And we don't, whatever, that's a different conversation that we're not going to have on this podcast. But
Jess, we're not touching that one today, folks.
But
maybe when we go around the racetrack and come back to that one, we'll poke it with a stick again and see if it's ready to go.
But these are all crimes that have happened within living memory. And I do feel, as a person who is a big, we're both horror fans. I like my things grotesque. I like my things horrific. I do think that there should be some consideration for people who are still around when you are talking about crimes so heinous, like things like Dahmer and Bundy and Gacy. Like, those are like more horrific than anyone can ever imagine happening upon themselves, even though we do have examples of it to draw from. And for Dahmer, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe families were not consulted.
I don't think so.
Before or during the creation of this television show, which I do think, as a creative person and as a maker of like wanting to work in a field like horror or something that is adjacent in that, I think that is incredibly egregious. I think that is just absolutely creatively corrupt, in that you should have at least spoken to family, even if you didn't follow any fucking thing they said. Like, even if you just said, yeah, all right, we got the story, I'm still gonna do this. You just consulting them. Like, I still wouldn't be, pleased if you didn't apply anything that you got from them or take any consideration from them. But the fact that there was not even a move to do it at all, I find very more, creatively corrupt. I do not agree with that at all.
I don't understand the point, I guess, in doing it. Or not doing it, I guess. It seems or doing it as in not doing, not reaching out. I feel like in a lot of ways, even if you're not going to reach out, you could I don't know, there's no foundation or fund you could donate to for any of this stuff. That seems to be another problem. I feel like some of these cities, honestly, like the city of Milwaukee really has.
I'm sure.
The city of Milwaukee has I feel like it has a duty to do better. Because a lot, part of it is their socioeconomically, socioeconomically, it kind of is their fault with what happened with the police department and kind of ignoring missing gay men, and especially missing African-American gay men, and
returning them to Jeffrey Dahmer.
Well, yeah.
And I will say that the show does a decent job at the last few episodes focusing a bit on that, and definitely making an overall statement about how absolute bullshit it was that, what the cops did, especially in that one instance where they literally did return a victim who almost got away back to Jeffrey Dahmer and believed that, whatever he said, because they didn't want to deal with the gay thing for too long.
I mean, I feel like that's the worst part about all of this.
Mhm.
Like, it's just like all of these like stories just keep getting dragged back up. Like, we don't need to be thinking about this again, unless you want to. But it's like back into, I would say, like more or less the public conscious again.
Yeah.
Why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Like, why do we keep asking us to look into the mirror and say, like, I want to have the face of Jeffrey Dahmer looking back at me for 10 hours? Like, Jesus.
I was listening to a podcast the other day. I think it was called All My Relations. It's a podcast by two Indigenous women. And one of the guests they had on was, making a point that, well, yes, I am, an Indigenous woman, and I do believe very much in decolonization and all of these things. That is not everything I want to talk about. And I don't believe in just constantly regurgitating, traumatic things, because that essentially puts a stop to, progress and, furthering joy and, appreciation for what I can do now. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that by doing these things and like regurgitating these big, crazy, scandalous, horrific stories, kind of, it captivates people, in that it's like something that they just like deer in the headlights. It's just there and they consume it, and it keeps them in place. And like every time you put something out, they're going to draw themselves back to it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I watched it too, and I am going to keep watching. I mean, I'm sure I will keep watching stuff like this. And, if I look at Dahmer objectively, as a creative piece, it's good. The acting is great. I mean, from the typical people, but I mean, it's
of course it's good. I mean, look, it's slick and well made. I mean, we saw you watched the Gianni Versace thing before. That was pretty slick and well made too.
Right.
Like, I don't
like, we've had this conversation, I think, on Culturecast or maybe off air, I don't know, but like, it's easy to make something that looks good, and especially if you have access to good talent, which this is, a string of people that we are used to seeing work together and are good actors and so yeah, like it's good objectively, but like you said, is it adding anything new? No. What is really the point to it? I don't know, other than to make Jeffrey Dahmer kind of sexy and sad. Like, he's a sexy sad boy. And
we recently did an episode of the Culturecast together about Hocus Pocus 2. And I would say Hocus Pocus 2 and Dahmer have something in common.
Vastly different content.
But they have something in common. They mythologize and try to redeem, at least in Hocus Pocus 2, put them in a redemptive light. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they're still monsters. Mm-hmm. They kill children in that movie and suck up their souls so that they can be young. And Jeffrey Dahmer did worse things than I could imagine even attempting to do.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
As even a creative type, like,
and look,
like, chill. Like, this is so fucking awful.
And since you kind of bridged this with Hocus Pocus 2 and Jeffrey Dahmer, I
as you do.
Look, don't get me wrong. I like my representations and fictionalizations of serial killers in pop culture. And by that, I mean, every fucking slasher movie ever made. And,
like
even some
Freddy
of the more,
Krueger.
Even fucking In a Hotel, speaking of Ryan Murphy, In Hotel, I really like all the serial killer cameos. I think they work because they're small, they're to the point, and it just fits within the aesthetic. But also, there's other fictionalized serial killer shit happening in that hotel.
Isn't Jeffrey Dahmer in that show?
Yes. He shows up at the dinner party at hotel when all the other serial killers show up, like Zodiac and Drew Ramirez and everybody. And like, that stuff is great. Like, I like that. And like I said, every slasher movie ever made. I mean, there are plenty of ways that I like to consume that kind of content that's like cathartic and, just intriguing to me on an artistic level. I don't need the real, like, like, because when you do something beyond a documentary, right? You within a documentary, you are very much constrained to reality. That's the whole deal. So sure, you can get access to crime scene footage, and you can get access to like 911 calls, and you can get access to a lot of things that are pretty like raw and disturbing and unsettling, like crime scene photos. But when you have the freedom to do a fictionalized telling of a real life serial killer, you can do all kinds of stuff and push your limits. And even within Netflix, that you can only push your limits so far. Like this movie or this show still alludes to a lot. It still has a really grimy feel to it. You still feel like you saw what he did because most people watching this know what he did. So you can kind of fill in the blanks.
I don't know who's watching this show that doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, who's watching the show that doesn't already know all of this awful shit?
Poor parent's child who forgot to turn on a parental lock.
Oh, it's the guy from American Horror Story. I'm gonna love it. Dun-na-na. Yeah, it's a horror story, all right. That takes place in America. Right. I'm with you. I'm much more of a fan of the fictional ones. Like I would much rather have a conversation about Freddy Krueger and Jason.
Because you don't have to reconcile that there are people's families alive right now who saw this. Because they're gonna watch it. They're gonna see clips of it. Even if they don't want to watch it, it is bound to pop up somewhere in some capacity. Be they reading an article, be somebody talking about it in public, be somebody, a video pop, whatever. It's going to pop up.
It's like hitting the shitty lottery.
The thing is that it fucking happened. It's real.
Right. It's like
and
hitting.
You do have to, when you're,
Go ahead.
When I'm watching Scream or Halloween or Seven or whatever, it's still fake at the end of the day.
It's like if you were to have a loved one be affected by this, or you yourself were affected by it, or you were a victim of this person, it's like hitting the shitty lottery. You know how many people die every day, but not everybody dies like this. And this is like an awful way to go, which is a unlucky thing. Like it's just unlucky. Like that's just the way
and to your point, like I was saying earlier, as far as like the types of true crime that interest me most, disappearances, vanishings, unsolved murders and things like that.
Anything.
Those are the ones that need attention. If any true crime needs attention, those need attention.
That's what I was going to say. Like, what's the point in telling that story?
There is nothing that can be done to what happened to the people that Jeffrey Dahmer murdered. There is absolutely nothing that can be done for Jeffrey Dahmer. He's dead now. There's nothing that can be done about his parents. There's nothing that can be done about any of it. The only thing you're doing is reopening a wound, rubbing salt in it. And sure, maybe some of the money that's going to it, maybe somehow is going to the families. I fucking doubt it. But if that's the case, okay, whoop-de-fucking-do. I'm sure they would rather have just been trying to keep peacefully living their lives without having a fucking banner for Dahmer flying over their every fucking social media page every time.
I thought you were going to say flying over their house on an airplane. Like, who's doing this over in Netflix?
Some really terrible person. I mean, if you're living in LA, they probably are, man.
A Dahmer billboard? My God.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I wonder? I genuinely wonder, like, because he seemed like such a fucking misanthrope. There are serial killers who would love this. He would not, I don't think. I think he would. Well, and
I mean, at the end of the show, it shows that he did. That he'd get like fan mail and he would like act out in prison. And again, this is all fictionalized stuff. I don't honestly know how, because I didn't watch the tapes. I don't care to watch the tapes.
The way he's portrayed is like very like pathetic.
Yes, he's super pathetic in this. Very, very pathetic. Very like, I just want attention from whoever's going to give me attention, or I'll make my own, as he do. But like I was saying, if you're going to do these big grandiose, fictionalized things about true crime, do them about vanishings and unsolved murders, because that will generate interest in the actual crime.
Well, I don't know why we should be putting our time and effort into anything else. Like put the time and effort into getting things solved and
people
done.
On a very real level.
Yeah, you know what? Go try it. I mean,
do it tastefully, please. Like don't do it in an exploitative manner.
Well, and we're not talking about something like the Zodiac Killer either. We're talking about actual things that aren't getting enough attention.
Right, like an Amy Mihalovic movie or something like that. Like
Jess, I like that one specifically. Do that one.
Yeah. But I mean, like actual ones that have, like, if you want to do something that's within living memory, do those, because it's helpful that it's within living memory in that case.
Yeah.
It's generating, oh shit, maybe I did know, maybe grandma did know this person, that, that weird guy that painted our house that one time, whatever. Like,
oh man, I just hope that this is not opening up like a whole new can of worms with this kind of content. That's my concern. That's my real concern. Because like I was saying, the thing about the TikTokers, like I hope that people don't see this as like, oh, this is so successful, we need to do more of this. People couldn't stop talking about it,
mm-hmm.
That's, I mean, that's,
but
that's
I mean, honestly,
cynically,
like, there's been,
ugh.
but like we've also said, there has not been a week where Netflix has not released some sort of documentary or docuseries or whatever movie about a murderer or a true crime thing.
No, that's
in
fair.
Some capacity.
That's fair. But again, like, I feel like there are ones that, like, some of them just don't need to be retold.
Yeah. The new Unsolved Mysteries comes out soon, right?
I don't know. Does it?
I think so. I think this month, maybe next week.
See, I'm excited for that. Like, that's more the stuff I'm interested in.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Because, like, this is, like, this, it's such a bummer. It's such a goddamn bummer.
I have my notes here, and like under my like ethics question, I'm like, I have it separated in just very like binary black and white terms, the good, the bad. And like the only thing I have for good is that it's like keeping stories in circulation. But again, there are other stories that are more served in circulation. And these ones that have been so like, I mean, these are so ingrained in pop culture that they show up in cartoons, they show up, like, everywhere.
It's on Netflix now. Like, I don't know how more mainstream it needs to be.
In cartoons, on, t-shirts, people buying pajamas, on cups, on, I have definitely bought like serial killer merch for friends that I know like would love it. But there's serial killer merch. That's the thing. Exactly. Like, there's serial killer merch. And I'm not above having like maybe something like that, but
it's in bad taste, but it's okay.
They're not going away. The stories aren't going away.
Right. And I do think that there is, again, I'm not taking this stance, but you could. There is a level of like modern day mythology to this. Like, I don't know who else you mythologize if you're into this kind of stuff. It's like anything else.
Dude, I remember it's in high school.
It's hard to explain though. Like, I think anymore, like, remember in the days of yore how they would create these stories about people, or they would tell stories about all these crazy things that happened. I don't know if this is any different. It's just, we're so close to it at this point, and we're so able to document it so succinctly. Like, go 200 years ago, and there were probably stories about mountain men eating people and it's like it's like that. But this, again, like, we're kind of so far removed from it. At some point, everybody who was able to remember this happening in their lifetime will be dead, and then it will just be a story.
Right. But then now the difference is now, like, back then, there were only certain people and certain groups that were scribes and chronicled all these stories.
Right.
Now,
like I said, much more easier and well to take
a million different ways.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's easier to do it now. I mean, that's the problem.
And sorry, people of the future who are going to have to figure out what's real and what's not. Good fucking luck.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, again, like, now we have made a fictionalized version of his story. So now there is, in our lifetime, a fictional Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
Fully realized, essentially 10 hours.
And there is the other part that we don't have to touch on for long, but I think it is important because it is another problematic aspect of this. Is the same with Ted Bundy, and we've touched on it a bit, is that we're sexualizing these really horrific people. And I don't know why. I don't know. Look, I am not kink shaming. I am not, kinks and fetishes are different. Kink shaming I am not going to do, but fetishizing serial killers is yikes.
Especially like sex ones, like sexual deviants too. Like you're going like the extra. You're going the extra mile there.
Yeah, and so yeah, I don't want to talk about it really at all, but it is something that is important to note that is another very problematic thing, that when you're dealing with this again within living memory and you're making these people into some weird sexualized thing, it's just not no. I cannot be behind that at all in any way.
It's fucking wild to me. I don't know. I do not know how to kind of rectify that idea in my brain, because it's insane to me. I mean, it existed on Tumblr. We have all seen it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Oh god, when I was in fucking high school and Tumblr was like the big thing, like, you know, you search deep into Tumblr sometimes on Saturday nights when you don't have any shit to do, and you come across people like who are fucking in love with the Columbine kids, and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, it's like, writing someone in prison for the purpose of forming a sexual relationship with them. Like, what?
They did a horrific thing.
Murder.
Right, like, it's one thing if
they're
they went
sexualizing
there for financial fraud, man. But
honestly, and like, again, like, it takes it the step further. Jeffrey Dahmer, the show, and like the Ted Bundy show, and the goddamn Gacy thing that hopefully will, like, I hope that is not going to ever happen, because like,
I'm sure it will.
Right. I'm sure it will too. Like, you're sexualizing necrophiles. Like, you're sexualizing necrophiliacs. Like,
you want to give?
Are you like? That's why you won't talk about that's why you won't say what they do on the show, because it's so awful. You know, like the Bundy movie literally ends. Her interaction with him ends with her going, "I want you to tell me what you fucking did," and he won't. Yeah. And she knows what he did. He's a fucking necrophiliac. Like, you're sexualizing necrophiliacs. Like, and like that. How? Why? What the hell? For real? Like, was there? Whoa! What were the spree killers not available? You had to sexualize the necrophiles first. Okay, good. Like, I don't get.
You know what? Like, if you're gonna give me a serial killer show of like an old serial, like somebody who's gone, like long dead, gone, and there's nobody around that ever is going to know who he was, or, you know, have interacted with him or anything. Give me a fucking H.H. Holmes show, man.
They're trying to.
I want to see that. I want to see the fucking Hotel of Horrors.
Are you being serious that you don't know about this? Like, the show lost its director, and Keanu Reeves left the show like in the last week.
No, I did not know about this.
The director left, and Keanu left, and then the director left.
Well, fuck. It's not going to be good.
It might not even happen from the sound of it. Why does anybody even care about that story anymore?
My want still stands. I want to see something like that. Like, if you want to give me a serial killer thing, give me that. That's fucking horrific and crazy. But it's like 100 years old, so let's go.
And here's the thing. Like, I'm not opposed to any of this content existing, frankly. Like, you're not going to catch me saying, "Oh, this shouldn't exist," because like, I'm not that person. And look, like you've said, I watched it. I get it. I'm not going to say I enjoyed it, because what is there to enjoy? Like, to enjoy a show like that about what they're talking about is to miss the point. The Red Letter Media dude said something kind of interesting, where they're like, a lot of the directors of the show episodes are African American, so maybe they're kind of trying to take back the narrative. I mean, sure, I think there are better ways of doing it, but if that's the case, then great.
Right.
But yeah, it's weird, because essentially, you know, we're making. I mean, these are like modern day villains in a way. It's just they're real life people, and it's just real people. But again, like, at some point, none of us will exist, and there will be people who are existing after the fact, and they will look back at this, because our hope is this never happens again. And if this never happens again, then maybe this is worth talking about as a sole singular reminder of how we don't want this to happen again, and we can prevent this from happening again. Like, if that's the way
totally good for.
Yeah, and if that's the way we want to do it.
Totally good with that.
Yeah, but like, fictionalizing
but do it in like 30 more years.
Yeah.
Do it in like 30 more years. I'm just saying, just wait for the main people who are involved and affected by it to not be around anymore.
Yeah.
Like, just in my personal courtesy taste, if that's where I fall on it, that's where I fall on it. Because I agree. I'm never going to say something should not exist.
Yeah.
I can disagree with something. I can not like something. I can think that it's horrible, awful, just absolutely 100% despise something. But that doesn't mean I don't think it should exist. It has everyone has a right to create what they want to create.
And it has just as much of a right to exist as anything else.
I just think it can be done better.
Well, yeah, and I think it's a story that's in the modern kind of zeitgeist. It's never going away. He was one of one there in a lot of ways, and thank God for that. Like you said, there are people who were like him in that time and place who did not handle the things that were happening to them the way he handled it.
Yeah.
And maybe that is a story worth telling. Again, I just think there's better ways to tell it. And the fact that there's like a fictionalized version now is just very weird. Because again, like yourself, I had that whole serial killer phase. And it comes and goes even now as an adult when I get into or have to watch these kinds of things. I kind of find myself wanting to read more about it. And again, with the amount of stuff that comes out anymore, you can not watch these things for a while and then come back and there are new things to watch, and read and listen to.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a deluge. Like, it's just constantly.
Yeah, especially now.
Podcast, YouTube video. I mean, shit, I was watching a true crime video on YouTube before we got on this podcast.
Right. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I don't want anyone to take what we're saying on this episode as like, we hate true crime or we don't like it or we find it salacious. It's just, it's hard.
I think that it's a very,
this is an internal struggle made external. This is kind of the conversation I have with myself that you had with yourself about how do I enjoy this content if it's being based off of real awful things that happened, and can I enjoy it? Even good without having my conscience feel heavy for like enjoying someone else's like real life pain.
Right. And for me, like as a creator and, for you as well, I'm sure there are certain values, what have you, whatever you want to call them, that I have when it comes to creating things and, the things that I'm going to ostensibly, throw into the world for anybody to consume. And, part of that, one of those main values is very much like consideration and understanding of what I'm working in, of what I'm talking about, of the world that I'm delving into. And also that the work that I'm doing does serve a purpose in some way, that it's either telling a story around a theme, that I find important, if it's, telling a story about a certain thing, in a documentary fashion, be it, doing this podcast where we do talk a lot about like, when we talk about true crime, we talk about the disappearances and the unsolved stuff. And, we have people like James Renner on who do, projects like the Porchlight Project, that is dedicated to trying to solve unsolved, vanishings. And I just think that when you are dealing with difficult topics and sensitive topics like true crime or like horror, things that really get into the nitty gritty of really raw feelings and really real things that happen to people and traumatic things that happen to people, I think that you should be trying to serve some kind of purpose in furthering either an awareness or some sort of call to action, just some sort of actual call to action, taking the major consideration and, making sure that all the protocols are hit and that you are doing everything in your power to make sure that you're not just regurgitating the same horrific information that everybody else has before, that you are actually doing something with what you're trying to say with your piece of work. Otherwise, you're just making something for money. And if you're just making something for money, that's fine. You do you. Can't say that I won't or have not done, specific gigs just to get a paycheck. Sure. But when it comes to major topics like this, and especially when you have a major release platform like Netflix, I just think that there should be some more critical thinking that goes into certain aspects.
I'm not motivated to retell the Jeffrey Dahmer story. Somebody else must have been, because they went and did it, and here it is. And someone at some point sat down and said, this is something I want to do. I don't know who they are. I don't know what motivated them to tell the story. I don't know if it started out as a Jeffrey Dahmer story and became something else. And I don't know. But it's not something that's ever motivated me. Right. Not something that's ever motivated you, but it's motivated somebody else clearly, and it's motivated other people before as well. But I am also glad that in the world that we live in, that there are plenty of other stories worth telling about other things, like you've said, that are much more important than focusing on a very, 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 very insane human being who lived for a very short time in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Thankfully. And the hope is that by seeing things about him and by knowing the kinds of things that he did and the kinds of markers that he left, hopefully the system can prevent him from, not being sent to prison when he was supposed to be sent to prison, because he was doing terrible things before he did the terrible things that he did anyways. It could be used as a cautionary tale, and it should be. And it should, and serial killer stuff it's weird because, again, like we've said, I mean, you have stuff where it's like straight up sexy guy being a serial killer, right. But even in that, they don't say what he does because, again, it's so awful. So if you can't even bring yourself to say what it is, then why are you telling this story? You want to have it both ways.
What is your purpose?
You want to have it both ways. You want to tell the story, but because you can't say and show what he actually did, you essentially make it where he could be somewhat sympathetic.
Right. Yep.
And then you come to something like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, where it's like, why not just do things like that? Because that's not real.
Yeah, not sympathetic at all.
Yeah, and not real. And not real either.
Not real, but still feels very real. It really does get the point across, man.
Poughkeepsie tapes.
But you know what? I will take my fictionalized and random little like cameo appearances of serial killers and things, but overall,
that's okay.
I would rather.
I feel like that's better.
Overall, I like my slasher movies. I'll take all of my variations of actual fictional killers, and be happy with it.
One of our favorite characters between the two of us, I know for a fact, is a cannibal.
Yeah.
Hannibal fucking Lecter. We were talking about it before we even started recording. Yeah. Silence of the Lambs came out before. Well, came out, I guess, technically during while Jeffrey Dahmer was doing what he was doing. Yeah, I mean, and they do stuff they do things that real life serial killers couldn't even dream about. Cosmic destruction.
And I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah, great.
Because it's like a cool creative thing, but yeah, when it's a real life thing, it's like, oh, bummer. Yeah, that's kind of awful, actually. I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, Pinhead much more entertaining when he's ripping people apart with the pillar, and sucking their blood in and stuff, and turning people into seedy robot killer guys. That third movie is real dumb.
Yeah.
But I love it, but it's okay. But it's so much fun. It's fun, and that's the problem. Like, that's why I always have a hard time with people going after horror movies. It's like, no, you don't understand. Like, we want to be able to have these kinds of things.
A good time.
Yeah, we want to be able to enjoy ourselves, but also not think about the real life ramifications of this, because the real life ramifications are terrible because they have actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's just much easier to palate and digest.
Yeah. And also it can be entertaining in that way.
Or maybe I'm just getting old and I can't hang anymore. I don't know.
just not one of the kids anymore.
Nope.
I don't think the kids are like sitting down and hanging out and watching the Jeffrey Dahmer show and smoking a joint.
The kids are a lot more we don't understand this at all than we were when we were kids.
Yeah, like if somebody was like, let's watch this show, like I'd be like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I got other things I can watch.
Yeah, that's not a group activity.
It's not much of anything, really, unless you really just want to be bummed out. Like, it's, again, and that's the other thing. Like
this is, I'm going to watch this by myself in the dark show, which is exactly what I do.
It's like a very depressing show as well, which doesn't help.
No.
I don't know what the expectation is.
Which good. I'm glad that they didn't try to make it an uplifting story in any way or add any kind of like real humor or anything to it. But it is, again, it's just kind of, it's a bummer, and it's just like, why? Like, why do it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's such a bummer that I don't know why. It's a bummer. It's just, I don't know. It's a bummer in a way that I don't like, in the way that these kinds of things shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to watch this kind of stuff. It's not great.
Well,
it's not great.
The good thing is we don't have to.
Yeah, I don't want to, and I won't. But like somebody else out there really liked it too. I'm sure there are people that were like, "This is great. This is glorious." I'm like, okay, yeah. Like if you wanted to know more, then this is probably the best. I hope that this is it for this kind of thing with this kind of with this story. Like, where else can we go now? Like, you don't even need a movie. Like, there you go. You don't need a movie. You made the TV show. You have 10 hours. Like in the last
5 years, we've had so many fucking documentaries about him and this and my friend Dahmer. So much stuff about him. It's cool. We know. We got it.
Yeah, we're good. Like, and like, again, like if you want to tell that story, like why? Like do the fictionalized thing. Like that would be fun. Like find something in that story that you can do something with fictionally.
Yeah.
You know,
do
that because it's weird to me. It's weird to me that this exists if I really think hard about it. Because like when he's getting slammed down face down in his apartment in 1991, if somebody could stop time and walk up to him and go, they're going to make a TV show about you in like 20 plus years, 30 years. And it's going to be like, people are going to watch it unironically, enjoy. Like, can you imagine that? Like, what the fuck? Like,
I'm sorry, what?
That's the thing that's
what's
crazy.
Netflix?
Yeah, what's Netflix? But that's the crazy thing is like, it's just like there are more interesting stories worth telling.
Right.
And I want to see those
more
stories.
Helpful.
Yeah.
More impactful, more
like Unsolved Mysteries.
More purposeful.
Like missing 411.
Like these people are missing. They could still be around.
We don't want to be gatekeepers either on this kind of stuff. Because again, like I know that people love this kind of stuff. And again, like it has its draw
just
for
in my
reason.
Opinion.
Yeah. This has a draw for a reason.
If I were to make true crime content, my purpose would be more to focus on things that can still be solved and things that are, like I said, more victim focused rather than culprit focused.
Yeah. And just increasing and amplifying a cult of personality around these people, which is already the problem to begin with. So that's ultimately what this all feels like an exercise in is just let's avoid making a cult of personality around people who that's all they wanted. It's all they wanted.
Right.
It's all they wanted. And don't give them what they want because there are plenty of people worth giving your time and attention to. And again, if you want to look into the darker side of humanity, I get it. We've all been there. That's why this content exists, frankly, is so that you can look as far. I mean, this is about as far as one might want to look into the void. You know, like, all right, like this is you want to go for it, like short of like going and looking at the real stuff. Like you want to look into the void. You want to look into the void and see how you feel about it and how it makes you feel. Like I totally get that too. Like I get it. Like you said, we all have that phase. It's a part of life, actually, it feels like, at least for people our age. So that like the kind of stuff that do what?
I said thanks, rotten.com.
Wow, rotten.com. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hey, we're kind of the generation that's, I mean, we saw what we saw. I mean, for real in 01. So, you know, God.
Boom. Trauma.
Yeah. I know. I don't, it's hard to kind of, it's hard to kind of even reconcile that in a way as an adult, you know, just like,
when you like realize like, oh shit, that now they probably really shouldn't have shown me that when I was in fourth grade.
Well, I'm glad that they did. I'm glad that they did ultimately, but
same, but yeah,
it's hard to, I mean, it's hard to reconcile. It's like any of this other stuff. I mean, you know, that kind of content is very similar to this kind of content. It's like, you want to look evil in the face? Like, all right, well, here you go. Like, here's your opportunity. Because, like, I don't know, like I said at the opening of this podcast, like, I'm not sure of a much more evil place than Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment in, like, 1988 to 1991. Like, fucking the last place you'd want to be.
Poor neighbor.
All of his poor fucking neighbors that had to smell the smell. Like, mother of fucking God. Just a, like, portal to fucking hell, Zach Bagans. Yeah. I'd much more rather just watch Ghost Adventures, you know, like, and just watch, you know, what's really funny. And I don't, you know, I want to pivot away and bring this episode home. Speaking of things in pop culture, non-serial killers. Have you seen early episodes of his show?
No, I don't think so.
It is very aggressive. Like, no, you laugh, but it's like, he's like screaming at the ghost, screaming at his cameraman, like being belligerent. It's wild. He's like screaming at people. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like, I'm glad he's mellowed out in the last 20 years or however long since it's been since he started that show. But
like super aggro, just like,
yeah, it's like very like dude bro Chad energy. And
Yeah,
like
thanks.
they've changed the intro to the show to reflect how he's kind of mellowed out. But in the early days of the show, in the intro to the show, it's like Ghost Adventures,
I'm
raw,
a chill guy now.
real, uncut. And it's like, oh, we're gonna fucking get you, Ghost. Ah. And it's like, whoa, that's some fucking energy that you're bringing. You should check him out. It's interesting. It's interesting because like I'd rather just watch that. Like that's because I know people watch true crime as like comfort content. Like for me, Ghost Adventures is that. Like it's so cornball and cheesy and like so just like funny, right? Like I'd rather watch that.
Well,
like,
and you know what the secret to all comfort content is that it all often follows a very simple formula, right? Like the intros are all the same, the middle part's all the same, the resolution's usually pretty much the same. So
Zach Bacon's never
a lot of what comes from
comfort
comfort content is there's literally people doing wheelies down my street right now.
Zach Bagans never sees a ghost at the end of every one of those episodes. So you're right. It's comfort content. Nothing ever changes.
Yeah, exactly. Same reason people watch reality TV. It's the same reason people watch Lifetime movies. Like it's all the same. It's easy, palatable. It's why people get sucked into YouTube. It's easy, palatable, predictable content that the brain can easily take in while you're probably also scrolling on your phone or cleaning your house or doing something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to Mythbusters.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It's just what's your preferred version of comfort content is really what it is. What's your preferred genre? So,
well, and hey, if serial killer content is your comfort content, cool. Hey.
Yeah. I mean, shit. I put like Unsolved Mysteries and various YouTube like disappearance shows and things like that on all the time in the background.
Just as really into women that kill, wives that murder.
I am. Wives with knives.
I know you are.
For sure.
I know
Deadly Women. I fucking love that show.
I know you are. I wasn't making a joke. I was being serious. God, that's like a cottage industry in and of itself. Let's bring this episode home by talking about this. The thing that I think has enabled a lot of this. ID, investigation discovery.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I mean, YouTube is one thing, but like there is nothing that has mainstreamized it more than investigation discovery. Holy cow.
Every fucking thing you could imagine. Your friends, your in-laws, your actual siblings, your step siblings, your step parents, your grandparents, your partners, your colleagues, everybody in your life show exists.
Yeah, it's investigation discovery has a lot of true crime content, but their stuff is never this gnarly, you know?
No, because it's still a fucking investigation discovery. It's still on fucking regular TV for most people on,
right. Yeah.
all hours of the day.
That's fair. That's right.
It's on network television is mostly like I'm sure most of us watch it on some sort of streaming platform,
but it's still
ultimately
live.
At the end of the day, it's a fucking network it's a network TV program, or TV channel.
I don't know how palatable Jeffrey Dahmer's story is for network TV.
I mean,
on this episode of Halloween Wars, we're going to be having to make some serial killer themed cakes. Like,
yeah, but in like the 90s, there was definitely like stuff about it, like on like 60 Minutes and the news and all of that. So,
I mean, I think
because it was happening.
Well, and I was about to say, like, I think there's also that. I think there's also that component to it where it's like that aspect of it, I don't think will ever go away. Like the actual real, like 60 Minutes is a real, like informative show. Like you could still tell, like, yeah, like that's the thing. Like you could still tell any of these stories in a informative way, but like not like in a fictionalized thing. Like that's not network TV ready at all. They would not have played the Dahmer show on like network TV. It would have like it
NBC is not doing a
I don't know though. I mean, okay, hold on. Walk that back. What channel showed Hannibal.
Yeah, but Hannibal's still very fictionalized. And
But
like
Hannibal showed more than Dahmer did.
Yeah, but Hannibal, the character in everybody's mind, is a fictional character.
I agree. But you see what I'm getting at, though. Like it's just like it's like a very the line is very kind of
okay. Fine,
tenuous.
CBS.
Yeah, well, CBS has all those Law and Order shows, don't they? Aren't they the ones? Isn't one of those the ones that has say CSI?
I don't know, man. I haven't watched real TV in years.
Yeah. Yeah, Investigation Discovery though is like the bastion for all of this stuff. Just so
for sure.
It's true. And Netflix. I mean, all the streaming platforms now have like a true crime factory that they pump shit out of, is what it feels like.
Yep.
Yeah. Every year, something else. I wonder who it's going to be next year. Because like Gacy and Bundy and now Dahmer, who's next? Like who haven't they covered yet? I guess Gacy probably. No, they did that.
Probably Gacy. I don't feel like they've done like a real like one of these more polished versions for him yet.
Do we need that?
No.
We're gonna get it though. We'll get it though. I bet we will.
Oh, guaranteed. Yeah.
Yeah. Coming from Ryan Murphy. I mean, John Wayne Gacy is another one that makes. Honestly, Dahmer and Gacy are the only two that like. If Ryan Murphy wanted to tackle him, it's like okay, fine. Like. Because, like maybe you are taking the narrative back a little bit as a gay man. Like, okay, but like, I don't need that. No, the universe doesn't need that energy put out into it, is really what this boils down to. Like, can you imagine working on the show like every day, just having to be around that fucking energy and shit? Just like, ugh.
No, that would be so, oof.
Yeah. I would say poor Evan Peters, but like, not really. Like that's his job, and he's damn good at it. He's a great actor.
I'm sure he was like, "Yeah, I'll do this role."
I kind of already look like him. Just throw some glasses on me, folks.
Version.
Yeah. But that's, you know what? Ultimately, I think, everybody's going to have their own thing. I think just always remember that, like, this is not just a story. This is real. Stop telling yourself that this is only a movie, because in a lot of ways, this is real. And I think it's just a healthy dose of, like, reminding yourself of the reality and the ramifications of these stories, I think is important. And like, the fictionalizing of these stories ekes ever closer, dangerously close to kind of getting out of focus the thing that we should be keeping in focus. And, say what you will about how they wanted to do it in the show, or how they choose to present him in the show, or how they choose to present any serial killer anytime they do anything. I think there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And I think that is a like slippery slope. It's a razor's edge, really.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a total razor's edge. And I don't think that a lot of people get close to doing these the adaptations of real stories. I don't think people do it very often, because I don't think there's a point, thankfully. But I also think that in a lot of ways, like I'm sure that the people who made the show meant no disrespect to the families. But that doesn't mean that they didn't cause any, is the issue.
Exactly.
And that's always the question.
And it was completely it's completely avoidable, right? Like it's just something that you should just do, and there's no reason not to. And
right, yeah. But ultimately, again, like you've put this energy out into the universe, and maybe this is a story that you wanted to tell, and maybe these are all stories worth telling. Again, I'm not the one to say what is and isn't worth telling, but it's just one of these like tread lightly type things. That's the way I look at true crime. It's like just tread lightly, because this is real, And there are fake stories that are similar to this. I mean, there are plenty of fictionalized versions of this story, but this is real. This is a real version of the story. This is not someone making up another kind of character and using what he did as a template. This is a real fictionalized version.
Basically just embellishing on certain things, but ultimately it's still telling about real people.
Right. And that I think is the thing to never lose sight of with any of this true crime stuff, is that it's just someone else's pain is, Pinhead would appreciate. Someone else's pain is our pleasure, is what it feels like.
Right.
Pain and pleasure.
But we are not demons of hell.
No. Well, I mean, I'm not. I don't know about you.
I try not to be.
Would you want to be Pinhead? Would you want to be Pinhead?
Would I want to be Pinhead?
Wouldn't you want to be Pinhead?
I mean, if I gotta be there, yeah, I may as well be king of it.
King of it. King of it. I think it's just Overlord, right?
That's
There's nobody over Pinhead, is there?
I don't know. I mean, the devil. I don't know. I don't know what a level of hell it operates on. So
you called, we answered. I love Pinhead. He's great. What's wrong? Nothing wrong. I would want to. Yeah, if I were there, I'd want to be Pinhead. I wouldn't want to be anybody else. Yikes.
No, fuck that.
But even then,
if I gotta be in eternal damnation and suffering, then yeah, I'm gonna be at least like.
But pain is pleasure for Pinhead, Jess.
Well, great. That means that it would be for me too.
No, but like Pinhead gets off on the pain. Isn't that the whole point?
I don't know.
If you're Pinhead, that's the whole point of being Pinhead.
Yeah.
It's like I'm turned on by the pain of being Pinhead. All right.
But also that means there has to be some like feelings of pleasure. So
that's ultimately what it's about, folks. Feelings.
Welcome to the Hellraiser philosophical hour.
Yeah, right. Featuring the two of us. So, Jess, when we're not talking about the nightmarish hellscapes of the Cenobites, or apparently Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment, where can people find you? Hellscapes of Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. God, where can people find you?
Where can people find me? You can find me at writer Jess Byard on Instagram and TikTok. You can also find me on other episodes of this podcast more frequently, as we've said earlier. I am also on a few episodes here and there of the Culture Cast, and you can find me and Chris at the One Season Show as well.
Yeah, as for me, you can find everything that I work on at weirdingwaymedia.com. That's my podcast network that I've been working on, 19 shows, including this one. So if there's not something you want to listen to now, you can go find something over there that you might want to. As for this show, scarystorieswetell.com, Scary Stories WT on all social media. But hey, just listen to the show, rate and review it on iTunes. That's all you have to do. As for the album artwork, big thanks as always to Maggie the Odd and Dustin Rutledge for doing that for us, because they do good work, folks. They sure do. And to our good friend Alex Malinack of Blondo, he provides music for the show. You can find him on Spotify. Just search Blondo. We'll let our good friend, the former host of Sightings, Mr. Tim White, lead us out as always.
No mystery is closed to an open mind.